Hi there everyone, and welcome to another episode of Your Bully-Proof Life, my YouTube show where I talk about all things workplace culture and where I place a spotlight on workplace bullying in particular, which I call a silent epidemic in our workplace today. I am Marilise de Villiers. I'm a performance coach, change consultant and author. My role as the host of the show is to write about and spark conversation about the staggering financial and emotional costs directly attributable to toxic workplace cultures, and to promote safer and more inclusive workplaces where people can show up at their best every day. And this is also going to help protect the organization, make organizations more resilient. The series I'm currently running is called The Perfect 10. And these are the top 10 skills that I believe organizations have to develop now and in the future in order to thrive. So 3 weeks ago, we kicked off the show with top skill number 1, empathy. Last week, we covered creativity. And this week we're covering top skill number 3, authenticity. Authenticity is incredibly important to me because I know how it feels to show up at work a different person than you truly are in your soul. This has been my experience many years ago when I moved from South Africa to London into a new culture, into a new cultural environment, work environment. And I actually call it the culture shock in my book, Raw, How to Tame the Bully Inside and Out. But really what I thought I had to do was to change who I was in order to fit in. And the day that I decided to actually show up as me and to kind of go in with that take me or leave me mindset, things really started to improve, really started to fall into place. So I'm delighted today to be joined by 2 amazing leaders that I've met along the way, 2 of the most authentic leaders that I've met in my career, and just 2 incredible people, 2 very heart-centered, giving leaders that, just show up as themselves every day. So Andy Woodfield and Donna Herdsman. Andy is committed to showing people how life can be when they have the courage to embrace their unique strengths, being the same person at work as at home. He believes that every human being has a unique genius, real power and impact, and a delightful ability to dream. Andy has been a partner with PwC UK since 2006 and is currently the global relationship partner for the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. Donna is an award-winning professional services executive and mentor. In 2016, she was included in the inaugural Empower 100 BAME executives list. Empower and Yahoo Finance also named her as one of the 100 Senior BAME executives in 2019-20. Now an independent consultant, Donna is passionate about helping people pursue their dreams and advises clients on inclusivity in the workplace. I'm going to hop over to Zoom now to have a chat with Andy and Donna. I hope you enjoy it. What does being authentic mean to you?
I think first of all, for me, becoming authentic is a journey. And as you go along that journey, you'll get lots of feedback. To me, the time I realised I am truly authentic was when I looked at myself and I was comfortable about the fact that I'm an imperfect person, but nevertheless, I can work with people, I can have fun with people, and the people that really matter will give me constructive feedback as opposed to feedback which actually can destroy one's very soul. So to me, being authentic is being comfortable with being my imperfect self.
I love that. Love that so much. Being comfortable with being your imperfect self. Andy, and you?
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, there's nothing better than being a hot mess at home and a hot mess at work. and being consistently a hot mess. And I can tell you, I've done that a number of times. Um, I think authenticity is really interesting because it's almost like the trendy woke holy grail to be authentic. And it's not some unique new state of mind that one has to, or some new performance piece one has to find. I think it's just as Donna said, it's about your own journey to being comfortable with yourself, and your true kind of totally screwed up self, and those amazing moments of brilliance. So I think for me, authenticity is about, just being comfortable that I'm all right. I'm okay as I am. Thank you very much. I've got work to do. I've always had work to do. I will always have work to do on myself and being the best that I can be. And that's okay. So it's a very my authentic self is a very calm place. It's not a performance. It's me accepting who I am. I spent many years trying to fight to be myself, which wasn't me being myself. It was me being a really annoying version of myself, which I was annoyed with. So I think it's just authenticity isn't a new performance. It's really just trying to accept where one is. And one is in London Bridge right now.
Great. So, Andy, I'd like you to tell me a little bit more about that sort of fighting to be yourself, and maybe you could just bring that to life for us by way of an example, in terms of, because I can imagine this is probably in a work setting where your authenticity has probably been misplaced a little bit because you felt strongly about something, but it wasn't necessarily accepted within the office environment. So can you just give us a sort of bit more color around what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Donna mentioned feedback. People are, over the years, I think people have got better at giving feedback and are better at understanding the impact of feedback. And, pure developmental or pure negative feedback, which aims to encourage you to conform to a mediocre stereotype of your role. I would totally agree with Donna. It kills your soul. It sucks your soul out. And has you work really, really, really hard to get to the middle of an organization, to be average and mediocre, and like that's not good for anybody.
No.
So I have felt that pressure from pretty agricultural feedback processes, to kind of address all of my fundamental weaknesses, and then not focus on things I'm brilliant at, and to become kind of average and normal. And I've felt that pressure, and I've resisted that pressure, and I've fought against it. But in fighting against it, sometimes that's also not authentic, because you're fighting. Why do you need to fight against it? Sometimes. So years ago, I was asked to do a video about It Gets Better. It was an LGBT campaign about, when you come out, it's better, life gets better. And I didn't want to, I said I don't want to do it because I don't think things get better. I think you just get used to it. And, in many ways, being authentic is about getting used to who you are. And other people sometimes won't like that. And that's okay. I don't need everyone to like me. But sometimes being your strong and most powerful self shines a light on other people's inadequacies and what they wish that they were good at. But they're on their own journey. And the reality is they're brilliant at other things that I'm rubbish at. But I'm not going to judge them for that. That's their story. So I think it's just, when you're in a big organization, there is a desire to try to performance manage and move people towards a norm. And I don't want to be Norm because I'm Andy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that helps.
Oh, absolutely. That's and everything you said just resonated so much, because I've had that feedback where I was like, oh, you walk with your heart on your sleeve, you need to develop a poker face, you're too emotional. But none of that feedback actually helped me to address how I should refine my skills, and my sort of insecurities was very much linked with my lack of confidence, because I came from South Africa into the UK setting where it was such a culture shock. And also language was a huge problem for me, because my first language is Afrikaans and I never had to speak English before I moved to the UK. So the language barrier for me was huge. But of course, the way that I interpreted that was that I've had to change who I was in order to fit in. Donna, come to you. What's your sort of take on that?
Yeah, so a bit like Andy, I think that most of the organisations, actually, it's not organisations, it's people, because people are the things that make up organisations. So we always use organisations like it's some obscure thing, but actually it's the people. That lots of people try to, I think, fit everyone into a neat box that they've decided is the right thing. So, I found there's almost a feedback is linked to their view of conformity. What should you be like in the world as they see it, as opposed to embracing the person that's you? Because we're all different. To Andy's point, we've all got different skills. We've all got things we need to work on, because let's face it, if we didn't have anything to work on, I think we'd all be dead. Life is about growing and developing. But a lot of people think it's their right to give you feedback that makes them feel better, but might not actually help you to be a better you. And I think it's Oprah that says one thing we all need to remember is that we are good enough. Yes, you are good enough, because often feedback's never about the things you're good at. It's all about the things you need to do better. And I always find that quite interesting, that if we truly want to help people be the best they can be, then why don't we play to their strengths and help them understand their strengths, understand what they're not good at, to Andy's point, and then go and find people that are good at the things you're not good at. I mean, that's what makes brilliant teams, when you get that balance of skills and you get innovation and you get the confidence. Because if you're not good at something, somebody else in your team is. But I like being myself, to Andy's point. I like being Donna Herdsman, and I don't want to be confused with anyone else.
And
never going to happen, Donna.
Exactly. I was going to just say the same. And we always expect Donna.
You'd be surprised, actually. You'd be surprised, because I'm black. The amount of time somebody asks me if I'm somebody other than I am is quite interesting. Yeah.
So you both talked about strengths, and Andy, I know this is also very close to your heart, and also you write extensively about this in your upcoming book. This is your moments. Just really give us like a short synopsis of your sort of positioning of the strength-based, and how people are just so much better when they focus on their strengths.
Yeah. So I mean, I think what happens typically is, it's easier to manage people against a role rather than manage, the hundreds of unique individuals. And if you do that, and then you give people pure development feedback rather than focusing on when they're at their best, what you find is that somebody who sat next to you at work or sat next to you virtually is being told to focus on the very things that you are uniquely brilliant at. And you're being asked to focus on the very things that they're uniquely brilliant at. So you're both miserable, focusing on things that you're probably never going to be brilliant at. And neither of you are focused on the things that you are naturally good at. So what happens then is the whole organization moves towards mediocre. And there's a huge amount of energy and effort put into making everybody really miserable, working towards being average, which just seems really completely rubbish as a organizational kind of model. And I've always felt that if I'm paying people to come to work every day, I want them to be the very best that they can be. And if I want people to be the best they can be, I have to understand them uniquely, and I have to help them understand when they are at their best, and then tell them when they're at their best, encourage them to be at their best more often, and help them understand what are the maybe more developmental characteristics that stop them from being at their best more often, and help them to work on those things. So then any developmental feedback is really in line with them being at their very best. So, if I planned a little bit more, I could be at my best more often, as opposed to, Andy, you need to plan better. And there's a whole load of great research around how the brain works, which I won't go into because I'll just embarrass myself. That proves all of this theory that actually you're so much better focusing on yourself at your best, and trying to get better and better and better in that, than you are trying to be average and be miserable and mediocre, just like, and try to be the norm across everyone. So, I became kind of slightly obsessed with this concept of strength-based development, strength-based leadership, mobilizing teams based on the strengths. And everybody, when you do this, everyone performs better, everyone's happier. You create better solutions, you spot issues and risks more frequently, because your emotional energy is focused on things that you're naturally good at. And the final thing I would just say is that people often say, oh yeah, but that's not, you don't push yourself out of your comfort zone. And people have got this kind of screwed up idea that being out of your comfort zone is doing things that you're not good at. It's just complete rubbish. You can push yourself out of your comfort zone in your direction of your strengths, and it's out of your comfort zone. So if I'm brilliant at talking to a group of 20 people and I can do that in my true authentic self, and it's funny and everyone's engaged, why not I do it to 1,000 people and be like, my God, that's like out of my comfort zone. So I can push myself out of my comfort zone and grow, but I do it in the area of my strength, not in the area of my weakness. So it's, I think this is really important. And I don't understand why any organization would pay people to come to work to be mediocre and to be miserable, to be unhealthy, and to not be productive. And if you can afford to do that in your organization, then good luck to you.
Yeah, and I think you've picked up very, nicely the sort of the role of the leader. And you say it so naturally, as if it's the most natural thing for a leader to do, to know what makes your people tick, to really get to know the hearts and the souls of your people, and help them show up as their best, But I think the reality is that there are a lot of people in very powerful positions, that don't really justify the definition of a leader because they don't do these things, So I just want to pick up on that, in terms of how can leaders really get to know their people better. So Donna, do you want to?
I think.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I don't necessarily agree with that statement that they don't justify to being leaders. Mainly because when you start speaking to people and you find out about their own journey, often the people that are leading have been through, they've had the feedback, they've grown into what they are because the people they respect and the people that actually have the power over their own, that person's career, and said, this is what you need to do in order to progress. I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just saying, when you speak to people, because we've all had our own journeys, we've all had feedback, and you adopt that, because to be honest, most people want to belong. Most people want to belong, and that's why I said becoming authentic is a journey. So when you start off and you're in a new environment, you're still trying to find your feet, you are going to take the feedback that people give you as gospel, because you think that's what it takes, not even to progress, but simply to belong, to be embraced, because most people don't go to work to be unhappy. To Andy's point, they go to work to be fulfilled. And one way of being fulfilled is to believe that when you walk through the door, you're walking to in the days when you walk through the doors every day, you're walking into an environment where you truly belong and where people in that organisation values you. I think, to Andy's point, the time it begins to go wrong is when people lose sight of the fact they're managing people. What matters is hitting a deadline, at all costs, which has got to be wrong. It has got to be. And I remember once I was mentoring someone, and it was a woman, she actually told a fellow colleague who she was leading that she was not her colleague, who was also a woman and a new mother, was not allowed to leave work to go and pick up her baby because there was a deadline to be hit. that can't be right, because she lost sight of the fact that she was leading people and thought the only thing that mattered was hitting a deadline at all costs. So I do believe that, you know, we get that we as leaders, whoever, you know, and I believe everyone's a leader, because somewhere someone is watching you and looking at you, and you know, either consciously or unconsciously are giving them tips about how to navigate their lives. So I do believe everyone's a leader, but we as leaders, we also have to learn, and we also cannot forget that we're dealing with people, and people have lives outside of what we see. I mean, if you think about, you know, your day, we only see a small percentage of someone, and we only see them in the context of work, and they've got everything else that's going on around them. They've got families, they've got friends, they've currently got COVID, and that has completely driven a new kind of lifestyle. And we often forget we are dealing with the whole person, because what we see is that, you know, is a bit that comes to work, or who that we work with. And, you know, good leaders always want to be better leaders. Yeah? But we can't forget that they themselves are under pressure.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? I don't think anybody intentionally comes to work to make my life difficult. No. Or, you know, I don't think any leader really comes to work with the intention of trying to ruin anybody's lives. But, you know, often, you know, and I've been guilty of this, you know, there are things that I've done which I thought were the right thing in the moment that have had a negative impact on other people. And it kills me that would be the case, but it was never my intention. And once it's brought to my attention, I would try to set the record straight and do what I can to fix the situation. But I think, you know, this is why I think authenticity really is about owning your own space, you know, from kind of here in, and understanding that, well, somebody's maybe said something or done something which hasn't been helpful, placing that in context so that it can be helpful for you, and how you react to that is down to your choice. But I don't think leaders, I would agree with that. I don't think leaders deliberately try to come to work to make everyone's life difficult. Although I have a small list of people that I do have a question mark over whether they wouldn't do that. But I think, you know, everyone's got pressure and drama going on in their lives, and you know, I like to assume positive intent, and I think I find it very healthy for me to sit with the assumption that nobody is trying to deliberately ruin my life. I can do that all on my own.
And I totally agree with that. So the whole not positive mindset, but positive regard, you know, so going into the conversation with I'm okay, you're okay. So you don't, you know, assume that there's the malice, or, you know, the intent is not pure. So I totally agree. And it's very important. You talk about this as my space, and I think you're talking about personal power, and it is about owning that space and recognizing that, you know, you are in control of your thoughts and your feelings and what you say and what you do. I mean, that's the only 4 things in life that you can control. So I call them your superpowers. And it's really how you know, show up. And I just want to pick up on something you said, Andy, which is, I think, absolutely crucial, is getting the feedback. So when you do upset someone unintentionally, you cannot really correct it if you're not getting that feedback that you've actually done something or said something which made the other person, you know, feel miserable or inadequate or angry or sad, whatever. But it is that sort of and that's why I'm so passionate about speaking up and finding that courage and that inner strength to actually say, you know, this is how it made me feel. And I think that links, as you say, that links so closely to authenticity, is to being able to say and to speak up and to say, you know, let's have a conversation. Let's have a difficult conversation about it.
Yeah, and I think it works 2 ways, doesn't it? So I think you know, any sort of leaders, and I agree with Donna's point, everybody's a leader. You know, you lead yourself out of bed in the morning, or otherwise you stay in bed, which is often a really good choice. So I think all leaders need to think about the environment they create, such that anyone they work with could say, hang on a minute, that doesn't work for me, or did you know that meant this for me and that had a negative impact? And I don't think it means that anybody's particularly wrong, but I think it's important as a leader to create an environment where people can challenge you and people can tell you when something didn't work for them. And most importantly, that as a leader, you can be comfortable with being wrong. I mean, as a white man, I have to be very comfortable with being wrong because I am wrong a lot, and and that's cool. I'm very happy to be wrong because in being wrong, I can learn about how I might one day be right about something. Um, so I think it's important to create an environment where people can challenge you and tell you that that didn't work for them, as well as try to get into a space where you can be comfortable with being wrong and continue to learn. Then that tends, I think, to create an environment again that where people can give you positive and constructive feedback, so that the environment that you're creating together is as rich as possible, so that everyone can be as effective as possible.
I do think though that the challenge is when you're the only one. So for most of my career, I've been the only one, so the only black person at a senior level. That people love to tell you that you're there by exception. So I think somebody mentioned the word confidence. It's really hard to be confident. So yes, feedback's important, but it's really hard to be confident in yourself and to understand what the right thing to do when there's a little bird on your shoulder constantly reminding you that you are the exception to the rule. And it's almost like they're waiting for you to fail. And you can often lose sight of the fact you're there because, you're really good at what you do. You're really good at working with clients. You're really good at leading people. And I think the challenge, therefore, when you are the only one, is getting to the point where, you go, well, you know what, I'm more than good enough. I'm here because I'm very good. And you both said, well, I speak out, but I didn't used to speak out because, people, every time I spoke, people would say, oh, well, Donna, why are you speaking? Even though I hadn't said anything, they would say, why are you speaking? And then often when I did speak and I had any ideas, they were always attributed to somebody else, very rarely to me. So you kind of get to the point where if you are the only one, I know lots of people feel that sometimes, they're the only one in that position, that they don't think they can be authentic because, the people that surround you, your peers, may not want to see the authentic you. So that takes huge amounts of courage to go, you know what, actually, it's time for me to step forward with the authentic me, because really I'm not, I'm doing a job, but am I happy? The answer is no. And the reason it's a no is because I'm not bringing my true self.
It's interesting, Donna. I wonder. Sorry to ask the questions. You can shoot me afterwards. I think that part of wanting to be part of something, to be part of that community, of that organization, to feel part of it. Sometimes people don't. People don't want you to stand out. They don't want you to be different because they want you to be part of the mass of everything. So if you are the only one, that's not always good because you're not supposed to stand out. The whole organization is supposed to stand out collectively. And, I think it's really difficult. I think it's the challenge of diversity is no one's really that interested in uniqueness because the whole, they don't want any sort of tall poppies. And what the reality is that it's hugely inconvenient for somebody to stand out because they might not want you to stand out. But the reality is, everyone is unique, and everybody should be standing out. And no one was born not to stand out. Everyone was born to stand out.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm wearing red. So one of the reasons I'm wearing red, red is my favourite colour. Red and black, my two favourite colours. And I'm wearing red because I remember going into an office for a meeting, and the feedback was, and I had my red jacket on, the feedback was, are you coming ready for a fight today, Donna?
Oh my God.
Wow.
And I said, no, I'm wearing red because I love the colour red. And it's summer. And it's time, it's a time for celebration. So, and that was from someone that was a peer. Yeah, that was from someone that was a peer. So, I think, one of the challenges about being authentic, and I think you mentioned it, Marilise, is having the confidence to just be you. And I think it takes confidence and energy to just be you. But, to Andy's point, if you're having to invest that energy to just be you, how much more productive could you be? Exactly, by taking that energy and focusing it somewhere else. So organisations that talk about inclusivity, I think they really need to look at their culture. And if people are really hiding their true selves because it's easier to exist, then really, are you getting the best out of them? That's when I think you lose innovation, you lose the spark. That's when you start getting feedback from clients. You could be any organisation. We could hear this from anybody, because, you're not creating an atmosphere where your people can just be creative. And I like to say, no question is a silly question, because it's not.
Yeah.
But how many organisations do kind of people don't want to raise their hands up because they think they'll be remembered because it's a silly question?
It's interesting, isn't it? With I think with the lockdown, that difference between what you're like at work and what you're like at home is all blurry now, because people can't necessarily present themselves as different people, because you're immediately kind of zoomed into somebody's home, and that's who they are. So you don't have, there's less opportunity now for that silly performance piece, which removes all your power and your capability from being your true self. So there's a real opportunity now, I think, for people just to try to be comfortable with being themselves more.
I do think that links back still to the culture of the organization, and I very much think that if an organization had that culture where people are hiding, as you've sort of alluded to, Donna, where people do not show up as their best, they've gone into COVID sort of lockdown, I think, with it just magnified, because it's just made it so much worse, So even though you would say that, I think people would now, not put their cameras on, they just put their cameras off because they just don't want to be seen, and nobody can force you to put your camera on. So I think there's definitely, for me personally, a direct correlation with the culture of the organization in terms of how the organization have coped with COVID, So whether it's been a strong or a weak culture, you could really see how it was magnified during this, or is being magnified, I should say. This is not over yet, but during this time. So Donna, I want to come back.
I think I've got a slightly different perspective, if I may. Oh,
yeah.
I can say I've got a slightly different perspective, because what I'm finding is that people are surprised that the organisations that they didn't think were caring have said stay at home. It's been quite interesting talking to, because I have like coffee meets with my friends, because it's a good way to socialise as we can't meet up. And, I keep hearing the same thing. They, to your point, Mally's, in the office it had one culture, but actually the fact that the employers now are coming out as caring employers has caught a number of people by surprise.
Okay.
Where they don't have to worry about going into work. And in fact, I've got a friend, and her son he works in the city, he works for a financial institution, and they had an all hands call, and the all hands call was to give the people the right to determine whether or not they should go back into the office. And his feedback was, it's unprecedented that would ever have happened. It would never have happened before COVID, never. And and they unanimously chose to carry on working from home. Some people want to go back to the office, but that's their personal choice. So I think, organisations and the people, if anything else, COVID has shown that one of their greatest assets are people. And if you don't have people, you can't deliver, and therefore you need to create an environment. And that doesn't mean to say when we get back to the office, whenever that might be, that we won't have a challenge around the culture. But those organisations that aren't stepping up and taking care of the people, they will pay the price in the long term, and that people will they will vote with their feet. But I do think I've been amazed at how caring organisations are being towards their people.
Donna, so I wanted to pick up on something you said around right at the beginning about feeling like you belong, and I think there's for me a direct correlation with the feeling of belonging and the ability to be yourself and to speak up. So I just wanted to sort of bring that back, because I think there is that sort of confidence to speak up, you know, which is the, you know, you will do that if you feel like you belong, but also I think you've touched on this, and it's about you giving yourself permission, you know, I am enough, I am good enough, you know, and I think that's probably for me the number one limiting belief that plays out particularly in women. And I see it over and over and over again, you know, so I just wanted to sort of pick up on that point again. Yeah, so I think we can carry on forever. This is fascinating, and I always love speaking to the two of you. You know, you are amazing souls, amazing heart-centered leaders, and I just really respect and honor you so much. Andy, I'm very, very excited about your book coming out soon. Is it sort of, did you say what sort of time is it coming out? This is your moment, is the book called, people?
It's amazing, isn't it? This is, I say, yeah, it's called This Is Your Moment. That's currently what it's called. I've got loads of edits to do, and unfortunately this hasn't been my moment to do the edits. Right. So I need to remove my finger and get the edits done, and then get it published. So I've got a publisher all lined up. I mean, I was saying sort of October time, but you know, most things in my life are about the experience, not about the product. And I feel like it's how, you know, what you learn from the experience. And I've got to say, the experience of writing the book was fantastic. And I'm actually not as attached as I thought I would be in actually having it published. Like, I could care less, to be honest. I mean, I feel like I did it now. I wrote a book. I don't mind if nobody reads it. But now everyone keeps asking me about when's it going to come out. So I feel like I do have an obligation to actually get it published. But I've got a few little. I must say, I tried to get the publisher to do the edits for me because I'm super lazy. I'm like, can't you just like do the edits and sort it out and get it out? I'm bored with the process now. I wrote the book. It's done. Next, you know, what's the next challenge? So I have to get the edits done, and then it will come out. So expect it when you see it.
I was honored to read the draft, and that's such a gift to the world. So you've got to publish that book. You have no choice. But there's a bit of a theme there, isn't there? Because you've done very, very similar things in your life where you've done it and you've loved the experience, but you didn't necessarily, you know, for want of a better word, sort of monetize it, because you're more about the experience and doing it and getting that joy and fulfillment. And I think that's so important.
Yeah. I love the experience. You know, I took a sabbatical, and part of my sabbatical, I wanted to learn how to do animal sculpture in ceramics, and I made these ceramic elephants, and everyone was like, "Oh, they're amazing. Are you going to sell them? Are you going to?" I'm like, "Calm down, people." I just wanted to see what it was like. I don't like, everything doesn't need to be a money-making scam. You know, I set up a gin business to see if I could set up a gin business, and I did it, and it was very successful, and it's done. And you know, it's finished. It's time for the next challenge.
There's definitely a theme there.
But I will try and get the book out. Maybe I'm just not a complete finisher. And I don't care.
Yeah, no, but thank you both. I mean, Donna, yeah, just, you know, so much adoration for everything that you do, and, you know, all the difference that you make. So yeah, thank you, I should say, and thank you for joining me today. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I suppose I just want to say, you know, it's okay to be yourself would be my final message. Yeah. And you know, when people tell you that it's not, don't listen to them.
Yeah. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you are enjoying the Perfect 10 series and you don't want to miss the other episodes, do subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the button below. Next week, we are going to cover top skill number 4, physiology mastery, and I'll be joined by Colette Pennar, the transformation coach for the ambitious women. Don't miss it. Until next time, bye.